The Florida Panthers bounced back on Thursday night, mostly getting contributions from the fourth line and their blue line. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, February 9th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12, follow show count on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. And Florida Panther fans, great to not only witness this game in person here at Emirates Bank Arena, but also great opportunity that the Florida Panthers had in bouncing back in this one. I mean, we spoke about the last 40 minutes of Tuesday's game where the flip was script, but basically, even though the Florida Panthers trailed twice, they never felt like this game was out of hand for the Florida Panthers. Tied it both times, and then the Florida Panthers broke this one open in the final period of this one to get a 4-2 victory over the Washington Capitals at home. But it is a Friday, which means it is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Nich Fairbanks is back. Nick, welcome back to the show on a victory Fairbanks Friday.
Man, it's felt like a long time since we've been able to say that. The guys have been off, and then unfortunately, we had that abysmal game on Tuesday, but I'm glad that you were actually able to see a well-willed effort tonight in a win.
My luck at Panther games is not like Jacob's luck. He's winless. I have not seen the Panthers lose in regulation. Only one overtime loss on this season. So knock on wood, because I'll be in the building on Saturday too. But
Jacob's a marked man right now. So watch out.
Yeah, watch out for him. But Florida Panthers, they come out this one winners 4-2 the final in Sunrise, Florida. And like I said at the beginning, lots of domination for the Panthers really in this one. I mean, but here's the thing, for in the beginning of this one, the Panthers were possessing it, but they weren't really getting to the front of the net. Lots of perimeter shots. Darcy Kuemper was reading them well, but it wasn't like the last 40 minutes of Tuesday where block shots and missed shots to the net. They were at least getting there. But then the adjustments started to be made for the second period going forward. I mean, the fourth line, I mean, they set the example for this one as well. I know the Panthers trailed twice in this one. The first one being the power play goal by Alexander Ovechkin. I mean, hard to stop that one-timer shot. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've seen that for nearly 20 years now. I mean, that's 43 goals now against the Florida Panthers for Alex Ovechkin. But also the Panthers and just their ability to just consistently stay in games. I mean, you think about going into the second period. I mean, Panthers going into this one, I mean, first period had only 12 minutes of 5-on-5, but then you get 140 of power play time going into the second. I mean, yeah, it's not buzzing yet, but I mean, you think about how Tkachuk getting that shot from the blue line to Sam Reinhart for the one to tie at 2 as well. A different type of power play goal, not the one where we were used to seeing where you get down low and fed, which Washington was protecting very early, but also the fact that Matthew Tkachuk is able to create offense as well. As far as your takeaways for this one, what are yours for this one?
I think what won this game that actually lost last game was actually the adjustments that Paul Maurice made. Probably a few words in the intermission, but he switched up the lines later in the game. I mean, he went back to the playoff lines. You saw Nick Cousins, everybody's favorite, back on the second line, and then you saw Rhino get bumped down on the third line with Lundell Luostarinen, which I think was probably the right move. You have to get more balance in the lineup when things aren't clicking. Team hasn't scored on a 5-on-5 goal until this game. You know, it's taken them a little bit to kind of gel back together, and I think Maurice pulled the right string tonight to get it going. Just that the power play clicked, you know, whether it was a fluky goal off of Tkachuk's skate or whatever, the goals that they're going to have to score down the stretch. And my top player tonight, actually, besides maybe the fourth line in Lomberg, was Tkachuk. He was everywhere. He was picking up the slack for other players, and he was just noticeable everywhere. So, again, the adjustments made in this game that were not made last game were probably, to me, the difference in the win.
Yeah, and Tkachuk, going into the third period, only Tkachuk had a shot on goal in the going into the third period, excuse me. And, you know, that's what triggered a lot of the line changes, which Paul Maurice has said multiple times that he has that ability to put Verhaeghe up and down on the lineup there, and hasn't done it as much this season as he has in seasons past as well for Carter Verhaeghe. I mean, he hadn't really had, the Panthers didn't really do that until really last year. But still, he hasn't really had to do that much this year. But also, I got to give credit to the Panthers blue line. That top pair, Gustav Forsling, Aaron Ekblad, consistently creating offense, jumping into the rush, pinches into the zone. I mean, there was one where Gustav Forsling denies a zone exit, follows up his own shot, and then creates a more of the cycle of the puck. That was with that fourth line on the ice as well. Yep. And even the disallowed goal, Brandon Montour keeps the puck in the zone, gets it to Erod, and yeah, that goal was disallowed due to offside as well. But what the Panthers were doing as far as closing in and denying exits and right on that half wall as well, I think that was really big for the Panthers. And also we can't go without mentioning the penalty shot that Sergei Bobrovsky stopped on Malenstyn as well, really early on in the first, and that was shortly after power play 2 had multiple chances out in front. And Evan Rodriguez had a wide open net where he just flat out missed. But shortly after, a stop for the Panthers on that penalty shot, which OEL did the right thing. That he stopped the goal there, and Bob finished the job with the block save on Malenstyn.
So it almost seems like everybody played their part tonight. Everybody showed up when they needed to, and one thing that Goldie and Randy always talk about is the resilience of this team. Nothing is too big for them, or nothing really rattles them. So, I mean, they were just punishing the Capitals in their own end for a couple minutes, and then what happens? Capitals come right down after one shift, and you get a tip-in goal by Anthony Mantha, which was actually a pretty beautiful goal, in my opinion. But they weren't shaken from that. You know, they were still playing hard. They were still controlling the play, and never at a point during this game or after that did you think that they were going to back down or try to, you know, like play more conservative. The defense is more or less the reason why they were kept in this game, as you were saying. It is so hard to play against a team that has as active D as they do, and they pinch as much as they do. Now that could lead to some errors, you know, if the puck gets past them, but luckily we have mobile defensemen that, you know, are smart enough to know when to pinch and when not to. And also we have smart enough forwards to get back to cover them. But just imagine being the Capitals in a couple of those entries and everything, and just not being able to clear it. Gustav Forsling was a madman on that shift. So I actually think that's probably when the game was won, is when that tide definitely got turned and the Capitals were on their heels.
Kind of spoiling the next segment a little bit about our thoughts, but we'll go more into detail on when this game was won or lost, 3 stars of the game, and more. We're gonna transition to segment number 2 and discuss that here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now you can find it on Amazon Fire TV. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find the Locked On Sports Today channel now on Amazon Fire TV. Back on this Friday, February 9th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a special Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. And Nick, I got to give a special shout out to Jona Gadjevich. Had a breakaway opportunity coming out of the box and drew a penalty as well for the Panthers. Also, Kevin Stenlund, even though Tom Wilson elbowed him on right in the face, him drawing that penalty there resulted in the Sam Reinhart power play goal after that. So it was just not only what they were doing, but also forcing the Panthers to just get that man advantage, as well as Paul Maurice spoke about just how much confidence he had in that line matching up against the Ovechkin line. Obviously, with the last change being at home and the confidence there, really speaks volumes about that fourth line as well. So definitely, and Lomberg getting that goal as far as resulting in the game winner, where Stenlund got it through the goal mouth on a rebound after Oliel shot, and then Kulikov set up Lomberg in the slot. So just puck possession was just on point on the night as well. But 3 stars of the game for me. Sam Reinhart is star number 3, Tkachuk number 2 for me, and Ryan Lomberg is number 1 with the GWG. I do want to put an honorable mention there. Before I was starting to fill out my index card to submit to the PR department, and before the game-winning goal by Lomberg, it was Ekblad as the 3rd star, and then Tkachuk number 1, and then Reinhart number 2. 3 points on the night for Chucky. Get that empty net, the assist on the empty net to Etu. So continuing just his fine play since December 23rd. 3 stars on the night for you, my friend. I know you said I'll spoil it a little bit in segment number 1 here.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
The oracles were talking to me, so I had to get that in right there. So my 3, I'm actually going to put Gustav Forsling as my number 3 star. And the main reason why I do that is because he took a knee-on-knee hit from Tom Wilson. I don't know if a lot of people saw that. And the fact is that he was in the locker room for like 40 seconds and came right back out and had a fantastic game. So he's not my number 3. My number 2 is going to be Chucky, just because he seems like his game is just building. And my number 1 star, as much as I want it to be Sam Reinhart, this is expected. If they get a power play, he's scoring. All right. Guy's going to put up 50 today or this year. But I have to give it to Ryan Lomberg. How crazy, or would you have this on your bingo card? Dmitry Kulikov below the red line, passing to Lomberg in the slot, and he just goes bar down. I mean, no, I would have never have chosen that as a game-winning goal. But Ryan Lomberg deserves it. I know they said on the telecast it was his 3rd game-winning goal, but that's in the regular season. Us Panther fans know it's 4 because of Tampa Bay a couple of years ago. So congratulations to him, and well-deserved.
Yeah, so Ryan Lomberg, very, very excited. Him post game after that, and just the trust that line had all night, as far as like how well they were buzzing and all. And credit to the Capitals. I mean, they were starting to get pinned in their own zone. I mean, the forecheck was just overwhelming for for that line. They were just finding a way to just keep the offense on their end. And Darcy Kemper, I mean, facing 41 total shots on the night as well. I mean, and this was and also I'm looking at the power play shots as well. 8 total on the power play too for the Panthers. So as far as when we thought this game was won or lost, for me, I thought there's a part of me where wants to say that when the Panthers tied it at 2, where it was the Sam Reinhart power play goal, that I thought that was the turning point for the Panthers. But I also thought when the line changes were when you officially saw Verhaeghe back on the top line, and then you saw Rodriguez, and there's a lot of praise as well from Paul Maurice on Evan Rodriguez about how him and that line buzzed together as well. And it's not, these aren't long-term lines as far as that. These are plug when you need spark, and then you're gonna go back to this. That's if they have practice. Panthers PR hasn't said anything on whether they're practicing tomorrow, but the fact that you have that option there, as far as when we talk about depth for this team, that's also great as far as that. And they got that spark, and that resulted in more time in the capital zone.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying earlier, I think the difference between the last game against Philadelphia and this game is just the changes that were made in game. With the line changes, and it looks like the team really started to buy in and actually look like they cared. Last game, it just seems like they were going through the motions, that they were just coming back from their long break, and this one, you can just tell they didn't want to let it slip away. But I'm just glad that the fourth line showed up. They basically punished the Capitals, caused a lot of zone time, and then on top of that, drew some penalties. And that's what your fourth line's there to do, is to be annoying, bang some bodies and make sure the puck is getting turned over in the offensive zone. So, then your best players got to step up and put the puck in the net. That's what Sam Reinhart did, and Sam Bobrovsky, I think I have that right.
They had on the jump. They had Sam Bobrovsky on the jumbotron today.
Love it. I love it. I'm trying to tell the Panthers team shop to make a shirt that says Sam Bob. I would buy that in an instant. But as I was saying, your top players have to step up. After the kind of performance your fourth line is put on, and it makes me feel more comfortable, if the Panthers make the playoffs. And I say if just because, the season's not over and you don't ever put the horse before the cart, that maybe this fourth line could be more effective in the playoffs than maybe the fourth line last year. And I know we had Eric Stahl. There were some parts of Colin White there, but it just seems like this line is bigger, it's tougher, and it will take advantage of other teams during the game, which I think will provide a lot of good results in meaningful games.
It's annoying for other teams. You see the post whistle scrums a lot of the time too. I mean, it goes back to when you look at the shield of the Florida Panthers, and then you see what they brought in for during that offseason as far as like sandpaper when it comes to that. That's really everything as far as like manifesting about what Zito's wanted to build. Yeah, Kevin Stenlund has a career high in points as far as that. I'm not saying we've gotten everything we've wanted out of Stenlund and more. I'm not saying that, but the expectation as far as him wasn't too high. So the fact that we already saw that production early on, everything is gravy as far as that. After that, as far as offense, we know what his role is as defense zone draws and all that, and just using his size for like battles, especially in the corner too, and on half walls too. Also, look at the blue line as far as shots. Aaron Ekblad had 7, Brandon Montour had 5, OEL had 4. We're starting to see like this one was a little bit of signs of last year. I know blue line scoring hasn't been at the rate as it has last year, but just the ability to still have the pucks on the stick and also get some stretch passes, especially early on where both teams really had their breakaway opportunities. There wasn't as many towards the last 40, but really their ability to have that vision on the ice to see their teammates and connect tape to tape as well.
Definitely. And, I'm not going to, I guess, get on the defense about their scoring this year, because guess what? They're one of the best teams at goals allowed this season. I will take that all day, all season. If they can keep this up, you hope that they can take it into the playoffs and, continue that that mindset. But I think things will, start to come together. You had Mikola earlier in the season. That was, the surprise. He was scoring goals, and I don't think he's ever had more than 4 or 5 in a season. You had Forsling that was just slapping the puck wherever he could, and he was doing that this game too. And, just when you have defense that can contribute to the game like they are, not only offensively, but defensively as well, and there's no, you're not losing anything from it, you have a good top 6, you have a good identity. And that's something that other teams are going to fear. I mean, they're not going to know what to do with it. These guys defend well, they cover each other, and then, when they're in an offensive zone or on a power play, you're like, okay, are these guys just going to shoot it from the top, or are they going to fake me out and get a tip or send it over to Barkov or to Tkachuk and, or let's just say Reinhart, and they're going to have an easy goal. So there's just so many ways that this Panthers team and the defense can, outplay you and also put their stamp on the game.
Or rim it around the boards where you have the defense's heads on the swivel, which their goals were created from the rimming around the boards and all, and just not and having a clear shooting lane as well for those redirections. So I think that's also as far as versatility with that blue line, I think that's also really key when it comes to that as well. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3. We're going to discuss more about this game and also prepare for Saturday's matchup against the Colorado Avalanche. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed, and we're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And listeners of this show can get up to a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Also, this episode is brought to you by Robinhood. And did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good enough through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as Q1 of 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risks, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC is a registered broker dealer. Third and final segment here on this Friday, February 9th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. here on a Friday. So, Nick, crazy, we were talking about how the Panthers, they had not scored a goal at 5-on-5 in the last 4 games. That was the first one in the last 3 games. So,
Mhm.
and that also came into play in their last win in regulation. So this stretched a little bit. It's not the worst stretch for the Panthers, but then you see how they get their wins in different ways, and then the ups and downs, but then the ability to bounce back as well, for this one as well. And just looking right now to see if the Panthers still own the best record as far as most regulation wins in the East. And as of right now, they still do, even with the Boston
Mhm.
Bruins beating the Vancouver Canucks tonight as well. So still great to see as far as that, the amount of wins they got early on as well. So great to see. But Florida Panthers, they welcome in the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, it feels like we were just talking about this a few weeks ago as the Panthers went into Colorado early on into the new year on a Saturday too. That was a matinee matchup in at Ball Arena, where the Panthers got an 8-4 win. Sam Reinhart had a hat trick that day, that afternoon, and just it, it's always great whenever these two come to town. I mean, I don't know how much of the whole All-Star week with Bob having those saves on Nathan McKinnon, and even in the shootout as well. I don't know how much of that will be a motivation for him to get something past Sergei Bobrovsky as well. But we know he is the front runner right now for the Hart. He is a monster out there on the ice. He's one of those freight trains that you try to check him, you're going to bounce right off him as well. And, the Central, when that's probably the best division in hockey. If you really, I think that it might be. You want to avoid the 2-3 in that division, specifically with Dallas and Winnipeg and all.
Mhm.
So spoke about the differences in the schedule as far as the different types of teams you're going to face. You're going to be facing mostly desperate teams. Saturday, specifically, it's a Colorado team fighting for that division, for the top. How are you seeing this matchup for the Florida Panthers as they welcome in the Colorado Avalanche for the one and only time this year?
So to me, it's a game of measuring yourself. They beat them, earlier in the year, and it was a crazy game. It just seemed like it was back and forth, and then all of a sudden, Florida just started to pull away. The Avalanche became unglued, but you can't ever take that for granted because Colorado can just turn around and put up 4 or 5 on you in an instant. And they are led by McKinnon, who is not human right now, and he's on a heater. And the Panthers must do their best in containing him, not stopping him, and that should be the emphasis going into Saturday. Is listen, this guy's going to do what he's going to do, but you guys have to limit his influence and also the amount of damage that he can do. Maybe he gets 1, maybe he gets 2, but then you have to make sure that Rantanen is not getting anything, Cale Makar is not doing anything, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody else that's on that roster. I mean, Zach Parise scored tonight for them, and you just have to make sure that you kind of like single him out, and he has no other support. I would love to see Bob back in net. I think he needs to get back into a groove,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see what this team can do. I think that Florida, in my opinion, has a better fourth line, so we'll see if they can make a difference again. I think it might come down to the third line and who's playing on it. If Paul Maurice decides to keep Rhino on it, I think they could have a very good game. If not, then the Panthers are going to have to live or die on the power play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you think about the amount of depth that they brought as far as after the Stanley Cup, and Ryan Johansson and all, Ross Colton, and so they, even though they're a few years removed and maybe a little step slower as well since their Stanley Cup run, I mean, you still have a lot of those experienced guys, and Gabriel Landeskog is skating.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Panthers are not going to face him. It's likely activated towards the playoffs as well, but 2 years removed from hockey, chances are he's going to be back, but I don't know what role he'll have. Also, when it comes to recent season, not season series, recent series between these two, it's back and forth with win, loss, win, loss, win for the Panthers, loss. It's a lot of back and forth between these two as well, and lots of high scoring games. I mean, I see at least one team has scored 5 in the last 3 matchups. I don't see any. The last time, only one team has scored less than 2 goals in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 matchups. So only one time in the last 9 that that at least one of them was held under 2 goals. So
you're saying take the over?
Yes, take the over. And it's going to be a speed game. It's really about, I mean, the Panthers use their speed on the night to outskate Washington. And it's really about how you're going to match that speed with Colorado as well, because they have weapons all over the place. I know goaltending is a little bit of a question. They dealt with Ivan I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly. Prosetsov first, and before Georgiev came into the game the last go round too. Let's not forget that. But still a few questions in goal as far as that when it comes to it. So big key as far as getting a win on Saturday. And I agree, Bob does need to be in the net. They have a few. They won't play until Wednesday, and it's going to be a front end of a back-to-back and nationally televised game next Wednesday against Pittsburgh as well. Ooh. And Puljujärvi is part of the mix with.
I'm not scared of him.
Pittsburgh. Same here. And but just something that came into my mind as well for that. But so that going to be real key for the Panthers to end this homestand on a good note, because as we spoke about with Kirby, home heavy month, 7 home games, 4 road, so definitely one. But Nick, any last words on the podcast before we sign off for the night?
I will say this. It's one thought that actually just popped into my head about as you're talking about Bob, is that I think the season schedule's actually played to his strength. He's had a lot of rest and a lot of time off, and I think that's just been a welcoming thing to him, because after seeing what he did in the playoffs and everything, and how much weight he was losing and how much water he had to go through, the amount of days off that he's had has just been ridiculous. So this is why we're seeing vintage Bob right now. And hopefully, he can steal a win against, the Avs and Georgiev, who's actually, I think, leading the NHL in wins right now. It would be nice for Bob to actually get that, even though, I think some people don't really think that goalie wins are a stat. I still want,
Guilty.
I still want to see him get that, because I think he deserves it. But other than that, thank you for having me on again. I'm glad that we could celebrate a win instead of probably going into Saturday like, okay, is this team awake? Or are they actually going to play well on Saturday? But no, I have good hopes for Saturday.
It's good to have expectations, right? So
exactly.
That's why it's a different level that we've dealt with, different territory, no pun intended, for sure. But Nick, thank you so much. And by the way, the Panthers do have a noon practice tomorrow for More Memorial. Just got the email from Panthers PR, so noon practice tomorrow, right before Saturday's game against the Colorado Avalanche. You can follow Nick on X at Prudential Zero, and also on Instagram at Burry1096. Nick, thank you so much, my friend, and I will see you next week, my friend.
See you next week.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.